Well, not exactly how I thought I'd be spending my day. Picked up a project of sorts, Ryobi all-electric mower. This thing was incredibly cheap, and I'm going to show you why. So here it is in all its glory. It's been sitting under a pine tree outside for who knows how long. It sort of-ish powers up. The story I got was that the previous owner was using it outside. It died, wouldn't really move, and it sat for some time. Supposedly it charges up, but there's something, and I'll quote the seller, was that there was something wrong with the blade controller. Now, based on the visual aspect of this thing, the fact that it's been sitting and it's probably pretty old at this point, even though this thing was a couple grand brand new, I'm thinking it needs batteries. Maybe it also needs the blade controller. Hopefully not both, but a lithium battery upgrade may be in store for it. Now, in the listing photos, this tire was completely flat. It does come with a brand new tire, which is pretty cool, but at a quick glance when I went to pick it up, I think really all this one needs is a new valve stem. You can see this is bent, it's hissing, and before I even got there, I loaded up in my truck a 18-volt electric Ryobi pump. Pumped that one up, no problem, and then, surprise, this one is completely off the rim. No pumping that up, at least in this dude's yard underneath some trees. So I may try to use my air compressor, reseat the bead, get this thing back up and running, and check on the valve stem. Headlight, that's a little wonky, but overall, I mean, it's filthy. Absolutely filthy. It sort of-ish powers on, but I mean, all of this stuff needs to go. We need to start with a clean slate. Oh, it says 196 hours to it. Now, just based on the camera frame rate, it's going to flash and stuff, but in person I can see 196 hours and it's flashing green. Now, I don't have any experience whatsoever with these. A good friend of mine has one, loves it, just did the lithium ion battery upgrade, and he's kind of sold me on this thing. So I figured for the right deal, I'd pick one up, get my hands on it, and try it out. So for starters, I'm going to bust out the pressure washer, knock some of this gunk off it, and then we're going to start digging into this thing and figuring out why this thing was just $100. All right, I went to spray this thing down, but then something dawned on me. Electricity and water, not the best combination. So before we get too far, let's take off this little service cover and disconnect the battery. I think we just need to undo this Phillips screw, disconnect this. There we go. Okay. So I think now we're a little bit safer. And honestly, I'm probably going to get to a point where after the exterior is all cleaned up, I'll pull this back panel off, slide the batteries out, and clean some of that crud out too, because I definitely know there's going to be a bunch of stuff hidden in the nooks and crannies of this thing. Wow, a lot of crap came out of this thing. Something seems rather ironic about using a gas pressure washer to clean an electric riding mower. But man, look at all this crud. Under the deck is still pretty dirty, which is to be expected. Not perfect by any means, but definitely a lot better. And you know you have a good pressure washer when you blast off the warning labels. So I'm gonna let this thing dry for a bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna see about pulling off this front right wheel, if I can get that tire reseated or not. Without removing the wheel, we're gonna try this first. I have a block of wood, propped up underneath the front of this thing. Weight is off the wheel so I can manipulate the tire on the rim. Let's see what happens. Woo, there we go. Things are happening. Heck yeah. Wow. A lot easier than I thought. Now, will this roll a lot easier? We'll go with yes. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Let this thing dry for some time outside, baking in the sun. Now we're inside in the shade. I'm gonna go ahead and tackle the valve stem replacement. We have this little kit. We're gonna use that tool, pull out the bent stem and try to replace it with one of these. We'll see how this works. Oh, I just realized I have some extra caps. This thing's definitely missing a couple caps here and there. Let's give that a shot. See just how bent that is. Fill it up with some air and we should be good to go. On these front wheels, one thing I noticed is they are a completely different color than the rear wheels. Now, I have reason to believe these are replacements. And just from experience, looking at the inside of these, the color, it's a bushing, not a bearing. It's got this little Zerk grease fitting. This is probably from a hardware store like Lowe's, Home Depot, something like that. So at one point, I imagine these front wheels were replaced. So these things were mega wobbly on here. And I imagine that's because they used the original spacers, dust shield, so on and so forth. But what I ended up doing was 3D printing a 1/4 inch spacer. So I'm actually going to grease the axle because it hasn't been done yet. So we'll put the dust shield, this spacer, and then the cotter pin. And that'll really tighten up the steering on this thing. So we have the spindle, we have a little washer. Make sure that the valve stem is pointed outwards. And we'll slide this in place. We'll put the original little dust shield back on. We'll put my 1/4 inch 3D spacer in place. We'll knock the cotter pin that came out of this back in place. We should be off to the races. Heck of a lot tighter than what it was before. I forgot to film it, but I did put this little rubber sleeve, dust cover, whatever you want to call it, back in place. Let's see what we can get into with the backside of this mower. We have 4 T27 Torx screws. If you're not familiar with what a Torx is, it takes a special socket, multi-point. Ooh, okay, maybe I should not have put away the pressure washer. Here's we have 2 13mm nuts that we need to back out to slide this battery tray out. There is a nut at the bottom, so we're gonna have to capture that. Also a 13 at the bottom. So there's one more 13 mil underneath the seat that I need to remove, but there's the 4 lead acid batteries. There's a lot of weight, so it's gonna have a cantilever effect. All that weight is gonna be real far out, and the mower is gonna wanna raise the front wheels. Wised up, brought some power tools into the mix. Again, 13 mil bolts. Oh, apparently there's something I didn't disconnect. The charging port. Oh, whoa, whoa. Okay. Alright. Note to self. There's no stopper. That was almost a problem, losing the whole battery pack, but I was able to save it, and right now it's kind of precariously hanging on to, I guess, what would be a hitch of some sort. But with the jack, hopefully this thing is solid enough to be able to clean the crud deep down in the depths of this mower. Whew. Man, she a dirty girl. Massive improvement with a little bit of cleaning. So the only thing I really noticed on these batteries, and correct me if I'm wrong, at least as far as a date goes, maybe that 7823 is a date. A lot of, at least auto manufacturers, do say like the 13th week of 2023 or something. Obviously the 78th week isn't a thing. Maybe that's July 8th of 2023. Or maybe that's August 7th of 2023. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments how old you think these batteries are. But now that everything is as clean as I'm going to get it, I'm going to take a couple photos in here, see if I can get any part numbers. Yeah, that might be it. Or say the blade controller module, and slide this back in, screw it all together, let this thing sit and dry nice and good. And then I'll go ahead and plug this thing in and see what it does in about 24 hours. Charger's plugged in. We have a green light. See what happens. Guess it's charging? I don't know. Well, we'll check on this thing in about, I guess, 12 hours. Got this thing crammed in the corner of my pile of junk, but it's been charging for probably 13 or so hours. And let's see what happens. The brake. So it's showing half in the green. 196. Oh. Well, my friends definitely went down a rabbit hole, busted out the multimeter, started probing around after I put this thing all back together, charged it up as much as I could, and it still didn't do anything. It would lunge forward, lunge in reverse, blades wouldn't turn, heard the relay click, but nothing would really happen. So I busted out the multimeter, I checked power at the power port, positive, negative. It was showing 48 volts, supposed to be like 50 some volts, I believe. And then I checked the ignition, the lock cylinder here, because it was kind of wonky. It was at a weird angle. and moved around the pins, jumped it. No change there, but if anything, I loosened up that lock nut, straightened this, so that's where it needs to be, and then of course I tightened it. But in the process of diagnosing, I checked out this 2 amp fuse. That was not blown, it's perfectly fine. I checked continuity at this relay, 12 volts across here, and then for this one I was actually at 41 volts, should be around 50, but whenever I pulled this cover off, well, surprise, there's more crap that needs cleaned, but it was really gross, probably because I just pressure washed this thing, and any grass that was in here, potentially dry, then got saturated, and of course it started to smell. But I ended up removing the battery compartment. There's a lot more stuff you can diagnose, and I will actually link a really good video in the description that helped me out to get to where I determined that the batteries were bad. But don't let me forget, while I'm in here, before I put in the singular lithium battery, surprise, that's what we're going to be doing, don't let me forget, I need to do the oil in this rear differential. This thing has 196 hours on it, and who knows when the last time that was changed. But speaking of batteries, these are the 4 that were removed. Quick visual inspection, was some corrosion, but more importantly, what I noticed is every single one of these are bloated. It's probably going to be hard to pick up on the camera, but literally every single one of these batteries are bloated. So much so that the metal bracket that sits right here, these got swelled up so much, it was actually putting pressure against that bracket. Based on the age, the amount of hours, everything else with this mower, it makes the most amount of sense to just lithium battery swap this thing. So we're going to be going from 4 batteries to 1 large one. I'll be in a decent stopping point in like 10 minutes.
Perfect. Parker thinks that's perfect as well.
I'm going to change out the rear differential fluid, and we have a 6 mil hex that's going to loosen up not only the vent and fill at the top, but also the drain at the very bottom right there. Now this isn't 100% what it calls for, but this is what I'm going to be using. GL5 7590 synthetic, and it calls for 250 milliliters, or right around 8.5 fluid ounces. Super scientific here, looks like a glass of whiskey, but a typical peanut butter jar, 16 ounces, so a little over half of that is going in this rear differential. Oh yeah, that is dirty. To my knowledge, at least on the meter, 196 hours on this mower, and I cannot speak to the maintenance interval that the fluid when it has been changed, so definitely long overdue. The first nut for the hour meter and the battery life gauge I was able to remove by hand, but the second one, a little bit tighter, just took a 7mm wrench. The original versus the new, and the new one is a little bit bigger. So I mic'd this out, and it's right around 2 1/8 inch side hole. So this will not effortlessly go into this original hole. Unfortunately, we are going to have to open this up. Little bit of leeway. You can see there's a lip here. Might be an 1/8 on both sides. So even if this is not the most precise, we can adjust it a little bit and then tighten the bracket from behind, and you'll never notice. Off camera, I put a couple of the T30 Torx screws back in, 3 of them, and then I put a paper towel underneath here. Also, the lid that came from the 16-ounce peanut butter jar that we used to fill up the differential fluid, I set it in here to collect some of the metal shavings, and then because of the method I'm going to be using involves a rotary tool with a carbide bit. It's going to fling some metal shavings, so I have some towels laying over top of the mower to hopefully catch some of these metal shavings. All I ended up doing was setting this gauge in place, taking a paint pen and tracing around the edge. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be, but we're just going to work our way to this colored portion, the silver, and then that in theory will give us enough space once ground away to mount this new gauge. And that lid definitely helped catch some of these metal shavings. The 3 original spade connectors are going to be unused, so we're just going to take some shrink tube and make sure these are covered up. We'll go bottom here, and it includes a little wing nut that you tighten. Oddly satisfying. After some fiddling off camera, we now have the battery in place, mounted to the tray, which I showed, but now we have things wired up. Now the tray is not fully secured just quite yet, so we can manipulate this, pull it out, get a little access, and then push it in and finally secure it. But before I do that, I wanted to show the wiring. We have the original connectors that came when this thing had the 4 lead acid batteries. The original inside gray connector here. I pulled it back a little bit and removed a little metric bolt that was right here, and then I found a longer version of it, ran it through. I have a small washer, slid this gray connector into the rearmost hole. I have a small washer, lock washer, and then a nut, tighten that down so it's not fully like cinched down, so it's still able to be moved, yet it's tight, and then it's up out of the way, and it's real easy to connect and disconnect. This is that other side of that original connector for the 4 lead acid batteries. The negative side, the black, it goes right to this side of the shunt, the P-. How that works is one of the bolts that comes with the shunt, have it running through the back side just like such. We have the eyelet for this negative black cable, have a washer, lock washer, and then the nut, and then of course we are retaining this original black rubber protectant piece. Now it gets a little complicated. For my shunt kit, the bolt was way too large to screw into this battery, and then the battery bolts that came with this are way too small. So basically I just found a longer version of this. Unfortunately, I don't know what size thread pitch, but it is metric. So I have that longer bolt, lock washer, washer into the shunt, plug directly into the negative side of the battery, B- directly to the battery. Notice this black cable with 5 wires in it. That is going to that aftermarket gauge that we had to enlarge the hole for. Pretty simple. That black wire runs through here and behind here, zip tied, coiled up out of the way, plenty of excess, runs through here and plugs into very distinctive connector right there on the side of the shunt. Now for the positive side, again with this original connector, but the positive side retaining the original fuse going up, that eyelet is plugged into the battery. Then we have an additional eyelet which came with the gauge kit, and that I shortened by, well, probably about 1.5 feet, just a short little stretch, and then I have it screwed in here, very small screw. It can go into either. I just have it plugged into the top, and then these are the connectors that came with the battery, and we'll just go ahead, click that into place. And because this is much more bulky, what I ended up doing was taking a heat gun, warming this thing up, and then I use the handle of a hammer and push down. You can see it's kind of bowed down. You can cut it, but really adding a little bit of heat to this thing, it worked wonders. So both of these are well protected. We can now push this battery forward, go ahead and install my little 1/4-inch spacers underneath here. Now, due to the battery height difference, we're going to go ahead and print 2 new little spacers for that battery tray. So we're going to use PETG filament. That's what I have on hand. Design these up real quick. Very simplistic. It's going to be 1-inch diameter overall, the outside size, 7/16 center hole, and then 1/4-inch thick. Tray bolts are secured, gray connectors are attached, the safety switch is pushed in. Kind of hard to tell, but when it is active and live, there's a little bit of a gap here. If it was totally flush, then it's kind of in like a safety disconnect mode. But I have it plugged in. It's currently flashing green, which is a good sign, so it should be charging. Now I opted to retain this original OP48RM charger for a couple different reasons. Cost, I bought just the battery, didn't get any accessories as far as a charger and things like that, so I'm trying to do this on a budget. It kind of has a maintainer, so whenever it sees full voltage with the battery, it doesn't constantly pump voltage into this thing, potentially overheating it. So it's got a safety feature. It'll cut off when the battery drops below a certain threshold. It'll then turn back on. Another feature, which is really nice, you can't turn the mower on and drive off with this still plugged in. You don't exactly have that luxury whenever you have a specific lithium ion charger, and then you have to fiddle with some different connectors and stuff. So we're gonna give this original charger a go. We're gonna let this charge overnight. After a few weeks of mowing, I realized I had a major issue with this thing with the factory Ryobi charger. Kind of had a false positive to begin with when I connected this thing up. Battery is fully topped off. The charger, while it was flashing green, it wasn't adding any juice to this thing. So after running this thing for a while, depleting the battery and needing to charge it, I quickly realized this setup was not working. So after some digging, I realized where I went wrong. This gray connector with the black rectangular end connects into this white connector that ultimately goes to the charging port. You need that. When I first did this, I did not have it. In consequence, it was not charging. So I dug through my leftover parts from this conversion, simply plugged that in, connected it to the positive port. I'll have to get a little crafty with covering that back up. But now, 100% this thing is charging. So we have the factory old school style charger going into the original Ryobi charging port, everything hooked up down here, and now we can confirm via the gauge it is in fact charging. So about 10 minutes ago it was 61%, now it's almost to 64. So that does confirm that in my case, I definitely needed this little gray connector. Mower is all finished up, put back together, side panels in place. This thing charged up beautifully with the original Ryobi charger. And to test this thing so far, I've mowed about 1/4 of an acre of my property. And we are down to 92.4%. We dropped down like 7.6-ish% mowing. That 1/4 acre, plenty of battery life left to go for the rest of this thing. But it's officially my mower. Spilled some beverage from the cup holder there because I was going a bit fast, and my friend Parker over here, well, I ran over something he left for me. But let me hop on this thing. I'll show you. This thing rips. It is a blast. Just turn the key, throw it in forward, mash the pedal. Oh my gosh, this thing rips. The blades work like they should. Push this little button, throw it in reverse, and now when you're going backwards it beeps, but it still mows. Without that button pushed, as soon as you go into reverse, the blades turn off. So it's very handy they have that button, because sometimes I have to kind of go back and forth around some of my junk in the property, but man, does this thing rip. Woo! All right, my friends, well, that is going to wrap it up on this video of my $100 Ryobi RM480E mower that I got for $100. And realistically, I would say this is probably around a $700 mower at this point. The mower itself was $100, the battery was $550, bought the gauge, the shunt, some other odds and ends. I'd say realistically around $700 into this thing. And man, am I happy that I did. I'm gonna be selling my gasser mower and I'll recoup some money back. So all in for me, this upgrade from gas to electric is probably around like $300-400. So if this video helped you out, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. This wouldn't have been possible without a video from Technical Penguin, which I'll link in the description. He is the go-to when it comes to these lithium conversions and anything when it comes to these mowers, because he's done a lot of diagnosing, so it made my life a lot easier whenever I was converting this thing. Thanks for watching.